All right, greetings. Welcome to Pop's Collection, where we dissect and reflect on a movie or TV show from a Pop's Collection. I'm Ron Tweedy, joining me as Pops, and today we're going to be finishing out the Dark Knight trilogy with The Dark Knight Rises.
Welcome, everybody. How's it all going? I hope it's going well for all of you, and also for you, Ron. How's everything?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Good.
Well,
I see you got your Super Mario Brothers shirt on, huh?
yes, I do.
Oh, well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Must be another comic book. I don't know.
I'm sure that they had a comic at some point. I know they definitely had comics in the Nintendo Power magazine monthly, as well as I think Valiant Comics did a couple of Nintendo properties. I don't know if Mario was one of them, but they certainly had a Metroid one, which I had. So
Right. And then there was also the Sega comics, with Sonic and Mega Man.
yeah, they're still going. Well, Mega Man's not Sega, it's Capcom. So
Oh, yeah. Well, either way.
yeah.
Anyways, that's a story or a show for another time.
Yeah.
When, I don't know, but there are lots of possibilities there. All right. So this was 2012. As I had talked with you previously, almost not same director. Nolan
Right.
was having second thoughts about that. So, but he did write the story with his brother and with David Goyer, I believe.
Right. Yep.
So, and they were able to come up with what they thought was a good conclusion, which, as a viewer, I appreciate that. One thing that I really don't care for all that much is coming to the end of a series.
Yeah.
And there's like too many open ends, which, I mean, there were some here, but I think more along the lines of trying to open it up for maybe other stories, not necessarily another Batman story.
I'd agree with that.
The way that I felt that it ended, which, again, this was released in July of 2012, a little earlier in New York, but in the US and the UK on the 20th. Had a $230 million budget. And again, the second of this trilogy that made over $1 billion.
Right.
Which crazy. I thought that it was interesting how they chose to continue on with the end of the story from the second movie.
Yeah.
But we're at 8 years later.
True. And, you have to kind of wonder what it would have been, how different it would have been had Heath Ledger had, still been alive. I bet you it would have been a totally different. They talked about it being a more of interaction between Dent and Joker. So we didn't get any of that.
Right. Well, that's right. Well, I don't know. They killed off Dent at the end of the movie. Ledger was still alive when they were making the movie.
Yeah, I think the idea is that the beginning parts of the third movie was actually they put that in the end of the second part of the movie because of Heath Ledger not being able to come back after in post-production. So
I gotcha. Okay. Well, interesting whatsoever.
Yeah.
We did have some different bad guys here.
Yeah.
Venom. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Bane.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
Da-dum-bum.
Yeah.
I thought I would throw that in. Nice to know a more than one comic book character.
But in both of these movies, he has a ridiculous accent. both those movies. So
He does.
yeah, Tracy was saying that it was basically like Sean Connery, but like insane, like somebody doing an impression of Sean Connery, you know?
I could see that.
Yeah. So
I
it was,
could definitely see that.
yeah. But since you brought up Bane, I do want to just kind of point this out that Bane is a character that was created by Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan. And Graham Nolan is an artist that he's still in the industry. He's not a part of the big two. He's actually an independent artist, and he has crowdfunded his own stuff. And so now he writes and illustrates things like Alien Alamo and the Chinook. There's a couple of uh, different things that he does. And he actually has a YouTube channel where he actually has gotten a number of other people in the comics industry to come on and tell stories. It's called The Storyteller. So it's just a shout out to him because it's pretty amazing the people that he gets on there and some of the cool things that he's talked about. He's had Walt Simonson on there. It's Walt Simonson, sorry. And John Romita Jr., just really cool stuff. So anyway, I do want.
Have you added it to your podcast or things that you listen to, or?
Well, it's a YouTube thing, so it's on I'm subscribed to his channel, and you should too.
Okay, I will. If you say so.
But I did want to kind of take a look at some of the art from some of his first appearances and some of the source material. So I'll go ahead and just share my screen with this. Let's see. This was from Batman Vengeance of Bane. This was his first appearance. And you could see this is just Graham Nolan style, this big splash page where you have some inserts here and there. And just, how Bane is like this, giant hulking figure and his lackeys. And so, he has the Venom, which is kind of funny. He also plays Venom, but, he's got like the, things.
Right.
Going.
Yes. And this particular rendition.
Yeah.
Now, is that the 1993 or?
No, this one came out in 92. This was kind of like a one-time special edition. There was a second one that came out in 95, but it was just basically his origin story. So you could see very similar to the film. If you go to the beginning of it, he's, born into prison for, the crimes of his father. He's got to pay for it. The difference is that this is a Cuban prison that he's in. And he's experimented on eventually. And so a little bit of a different story, but you have that. But the real big comic moment for Bane was in a series called, or a run called Nightfall, which, Graham Nolan, Chuck Dixon did have some hand in, but it actually spanned a number of different books. It was in Detective Comics, it was in Batman, and a couple others. And so I've got like this one key moment here where Bane breaks the back of Batman. That was just one of the things that I saw was pretty evocative, but so you got that there.
Yes. And if you notice he's a lot hairier in this version.
Yeah, this actually wasn't illustrated by Graham Nolan. I think it was, let's see. I think there's an info page here, if I remember correctly. I'll just scroll up to the beginning of it. There we go. This was written by Doug Mensch and Jim Arparo. So that particular iconic image was done by those two. And then this is another one from Graham Nolan, just kind of a big splash page of Bane tossing Batman, which is pretty cool. I mean, obviously it's peak early 90s comics, just kind of the extreme, Todd McFarlane / Rob Liefeld. That's kind of the context that you were in when it comes to those comics. But obviously there's a lot of talent there, and you can just look at the detail with the
absolutely.
Batman's costume torn up. It's awesome.
Well, you notice we also have from like the animated series and some of the different Batman animations.
Yeah.
In the early ones, Bane is not really portrayed as this big bad villain. He's kind of more of in some he's a lackey for Poison Ivy.
Yeah, that was the Batman and Robin movie with George Clooney and
yes,
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. Yes. Another classic that we probably will have to eventually
yeah.
Well, it's kind of like TMNT3,
Yeah, possibly.
In that same vein, maybe a little better quality, but
Yeah.
um, in this version, I really loved the way that they portrayed him.
Yeah.
From beginning to end, he definitely was more of a feared villain,
Oh, sure.
feared by not only the police, but by other villains.
Yeah, yeah, and the Ra's al Ghul connection is very. That's the one thing I'll say about the Nolan movies that they did, I think, the best out of all of the other Batman films is that he really, once you established a villain in his universe, that villain stuck around, which is very indicative, true to the comics. We actually have Scarecrow come up in this film in a very brief scene, but he's there.
Well, no, he's not really. He's in a few scenes. He's playing the judge,
Right. That's my point.
but he's just like you say briefly, but he has passed sentence quite a few times.
Mhm.
Um, yes, and we also got Kyle,
Yes, that's right.
as a bad person, and John Daggett,
Yes.
who appears somewhat, but not very often,
Right.
as a I don't know, counter
He's
to Bruce Wayne.
yeah, he's kind of like the Justin Hammer to Tony Stark.
Probably, yes, pretty close to it.
Yeah.
I would have to say that quite similar. What I thought was interesting about this was the twist at the end.
Mhm.
Uh, all this time, well, actually, in the back half of the movie, when you get the story of the
Yeah.
pit,
Right.
um, that is a humongous twist at the end there.
Yeah, I agree.
But and again, all due to the writing and the direction of Nolan and Goyer, who's a brilliant writer.
Mhm. Yeah, agree.
He's actually, I told you that I got a sneak peek for the Long Halloween
Uh-huh.
on my new Justice Society World War II, which I'll probably do a little bit of a review on our webpage,
Okay.
on our Facebook page. I'll talk with you about that.
Okay.
Um, but what I thought was interesting is Goyer wrote the story for that too, uh,
Okay.
for the animated version
Gotcha.
of that. And it's actually going to be in two parts.
Yeah,
So
it's a
it's obvious they couldn't tell that story
yeah.
in well, originally when The Long Halloween came out, it was like a 16 issue,
13, yeah.
or yeah, it was multiple issues. So I
Right.
could see how one animation wouldn't tell the whole story.
Yeah,
So
literally one issue would cover a holiday throughout a year. And so that's why I think they call it the long Halloween, is that it's kind of, going throughout the year. And like, some of it takes place on Valentine's Day, one takes place on President's Day. It's just, it's one of those things where,
yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of cool. The actual, and like I said, it's going to be coming out in, I think, October
Okay.
as a graphic novel. They're going to reprint it
Ah,
in
okay.
one huge graphic novel. So
Yeah, I think they should.
yeah, I think that it kind of reminds me of different TV series. I prefer to watch them when I get them on DVD because
Yeah.
although on some series I have watched them and waited till the next week to get to the next episode, but the story just loses continuity that way,
Yeah, it can.
So I prefer to just buy it the whole season and watch it all at once.
Hmm.
It kind of makes it flow a little better. But in this case, this story takes place 8 years after um, Harvey Dent's death, and we get I think it's called the Dent Law or something,
The
or
Dent Act, yeah.
the Dent Act. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which gives the police expanded powers, and we're actually seeing a Gotham City that really doesn't have a lot of crime.
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And we also, I think that, this is The Dark Knight Rises, but I think a lot of this story is really about Bruce Wayne,
Oh yeah.
which is good because, like I said before, Christian is not, or not Christian, but, he plays a better Batman than he does, a better Bruce Wayne than he does a Batman.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think we get a whole lot of Batman in this
No, we don't.
story. We get a lot more because it almost reminded me of The Dark Knight Returns, the graphic novel. The
Yeah.
parts where we first see him, he's kind of a shell of himself.
Yeah. He's old.
Again, it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
He's got a beard. He's got a mustache.
Yeah.
He has trouble with his leg.
Right.
We find out when he decides or thinks that he needs to go out again as Batman. His doctor says, "Hey, you got brain damage. You got, this wrong with you, this wrong with you, all these things where he really should be retired."
Yeah.
But again, I think I was a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
All the way around. And I think from the very beginning, there were twists.
Mm-hmm.
You
Certainly.
know, and the one thing that I really didn't care about too much was maybe the CGs in this.
Yeah, I can see that.
We got some cameos from some NFL players,
Oh yeah.
but that particular scene with the football field, being destroyed, I don't know. I just
Took you
didn't
out.
really. Yeah, it did. It's one of the few times. I was taken out of it a couple of times here and there,
I
but
was taken out of it right away when all of a sudden I heard nobody cared who I was till I put on the mask. It's just really bad.
yeah, that's true. That is true. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
But hey, well, where do you want to start here? We're 8 years behind,
Yeah.
but you know, we have Bane getting into an airplane
Mhm.
to get somebody that the CIA or FBI or somebody is
Yeah.
trying to protect.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we kind of get an inkling of the story that Bruce has no money because he put his money in this energy
Yep.
machine that he found out could be used as a weapon.
Right. Who the scientist that was captured figured out how to weaponize it.
Right. Well, was he the original designer of the water system or the energy system? We don't know.
I don't think so. I think he was just the one, like he published a paper saying, hey, if this technology existed, this is how it would be weaponized. And therefore, Bruce Wayne saw that and was like, there's no way we can bring this to the city because if somebody else figured out how to weaponize it, somebody here can.
Right, which it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the way a lot of the stories go. There's something that is of good value to humanity,
Yep.
yet somebody can twist it around and turn it into something that would be destructive to humanity.
Yeah, that was the whole plot to Iron Man 2 in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. And I guess you could even say Age of Ultron had that kind of, but again, we're talking about Bane
mm-hmm.
and his actual thing. Now we get introduced to some different characters in this, as I mentioned, Selena Kyle
Yep.
and John Daggett.
Yep.
Also Miranda Tate,
Right.
which in the beginning we see as one of the good guys.
Right.
And Johnny Blake
Yes.
is another character who somehow Commissioner Gordon makes a detective.
Right.
From being just a regular police officer.
Yeah. And who knows, just basically intuits that, Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And go figure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that is one thing that, and I don't know if it's hard to tell exactly what is the reason why it happens like this. So for instance, like in the comics or in the TV show or the animated series, there's always been this way of trying to keep Batman's identity a secret, and only a few people really do find out that who Batman really is. But it seems like everybody figures out who Batman is in the movies. Everybody figures it out eventually.
Well,
And
I'm sure there's a reason for that.
And to me, the other part of it, because it's almost the exact opposite with Marvel. At the very end of Iron Man, he's like, no secret identity nonsense. He's not my bodyguard. I am Iron Man, right? And so I'm wondering if that, because of that, people, they other folks in the creative industry are like, yeah, the secret identity thing is not really something that is relevant anymore. I don't know.
Well, which bodes to me is why in the heck nobody could figure out Clark Kent was Superman. I mean, he wears glasses.
Yeah.
That's his disguise.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, to be fair, I will say that Christopher Reeve, when he was Superman, there was more than just glasses when it came to his secret identity. Like, there was a way that he would slouch a little bit more. He definitely had a different body language when he was trying to be Clark Kent. He actually, I think he pulled it off in a very interesting way. I mean, it's still obvious that he's Superman, but at the same time, you could tell that he's an actor trying to be an actor inside his own film, which is kind of interesting.
Yes, that's true. Okay, but that's Superman. Batman has a cowl.
Yeah.
He has
And he changes his voice to sound ridiculous.
Yes, without using a manipulator, a voice reflected. But this one, not so much. He didn't.
Well, he wasn't Batman for a whole lot of the movie, like you said, so he didn't have a whole lot of time to do that. So,
right. But again, I thought it was interesting how they, every little part kind of unfolded into another little part of the story, and I thought it was good the way that you didn't really get the true story till almost the very end.
Yeah. And different characters, they get the truth revealed to them at certain parts, and it completely changes the story. So, for instance, we see at the very beginning or towards the beginning, the mayor is, giving a speech about, how successful the Dentac has been. And, it's because of Harvey's sacrifice that they were able to do all this stuff. And we see a speech that was prepared by Gordon, and he says, I can't go through with it. And it turns out that speech was, basically knowing the truth about Harvey Dent. Right. And then, Bruce, because he's in that, feeling sorry for himself and just kind of being a recluse the whole time. It's because he thinks that Rachel was going to leave Harvey to be with him, that going to put away Batman, and that never happened. And so he has that weight on him. And then he finds out from Alfred that, hey, that really wasn't the thing. She actually wrote you a letter, and I never gave it to you because I didn't want to spare you the pain, but she was never going to be with you anyway. She was going to go run away with Harvey Dent. And so he finds that out, and that totally changes it for him, and then this is the big thing, I think. And this actually is, I think there's actually some biblical principles here, is that, Galatians 6 says, don't be deceived, what you sow, you'll reap, So sin can stay hidden for a while, but eventually it will come out. And because of the passivity of Jim Gordon, the truth about Dent comes out. But when does it come out? It comes out when Bane brings it to light, and that completely throws everything into chaos.
Which is what he wanted to do anyways.
Yes. And the best part about that is that it was him essentially fulfilling his mission from the League of Shadows, which is, to me, is like the biggest, another big revelation about that.
So. Right. And it comes full circle from Batman Begins.
Exactly.
Everything kind of like goes together. But the thing that to me was so cool was that we kept hearing these stories that Bane was in the League of Shadows, but he got excommunicated.
Right.
So we got that little story. So we thought, wow, so this guy is so crazy.
Yeah.
And that even the League of Shadows don't want him.
Right.
So we were thinking along that lines.
Yep.
And then a little further in the story, we get this thought that because they tell the story of the pit,
yeah,
that he's the one that was successful climbing out the pit,
right,
and that he's Ra's al Ghul's son.
Exactly.
And we kind of get that story. Now, as a comic book guy,
right,
I can say that I have never, I'm sure there's probably is, but I've never read a story where Ra's al Ghul had a son.
No, but he did have a daughter.
Yes. And I've heard that story. I've read that story.
Yeah.
It's been brought out in many different, once on Arrows and another story, but always Ra's al Ghul had a daughter.
Right.
Even in Gotham, and he showed up in Gotham. So as somebody who knows the story,
yeah,
I thought, well, okay, this is going to be interesting if Bane is his son.
Right.
I'm thinking I've never heard that story before. So I was kind of piqued in interest to see how they were going to go with that.
Yeah.
And of course, we got a 180 with that at the end.
Yeah. And then the other one, I will say, the big story changing is Selena Kyle's arc, because, she is constantly trying to run away from the consequences of her actions. And so she is looking for this one thing that's going to set her life up and everything. And so that kind of, moves the plot along in various points as well. So it's interesting.
Right. And we do learn that she had stolen Bruce's fingerprints for Daggett.
Right.
Who, as we know, or he thinks, he's hired Bane, to do different things for him so that he can get Bruce's company.
That's right.
So we have that storyline.
And that is his motivation. Once he finds out that's not what the people he was working for, their motivations were, he's really upset about that.
Yes, that's true. And, he kind of loses his head about that.
Yeah.
Later, bump.
Yeah.
But I thought the way that they developed the Bane character in this was just, it was a great twist at the end.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I thought what I thought was interesting was the pit, when Bruce was in the pit.
Yeah.
All that happened in 5 months.
Right.
I don't know. I thought, I figured, oh, this is going to take years. But we did get that flaming bat on the side of the building, and we got Bane saying, unbelievable,
Yeah.
like not possible, he thought.
Right.
So he was, in his attempt, wanted to break Bruce.
Yep.
He also knew that Bruce was Batman.
Yes.
And as did Miranda, even though she never mentioned it until the end, but she did know,
Right.
you know. But we got, I think the story flowed in such a manner
Yeah.
that we could, other than those spots that took me out of it, which there were a few of them,
Right.
that took me out of it. And I thought, okay, I could have done without this. Who needed to see the guy score a touchdown, right? It was pretty good, other than those things, how the criminals took over the city,
Yeah.
and
That was.
how the twist where they actually uh, had all the police in the underground,
Yep.
and they were stuck there, and the chaos of the city being run by the criminals.
Yeah.
So definitely, I like the way that storyline went.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was kind of interesting how Gordon and Blake, even though that Blake, after hearing Bane talk about Dent not being the guy that everybody thought he was,
Yeah.
and Gordon actually not, bringing it to light sooner,
Yeah.
how Blake kind of forgave Gordon and actually worked with him
Yeah.
and with the police underground to kind of get things a little bit back to normal somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the goal. Um, and we also had another character, I guess. Was he the chief of police, I guess? That there was another character, blonde hair. He
Oh,
kind
Foley.
of, I can't
Foley.
remember. Yeah, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. He. I think he was just working with Commissioner Gordon. I don't think he was. Maybe he was the chief of police. I don't remember.
Right. I'm not positive. Well, in the end, he came out in like a chief's of policeman suit.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. But he kind of, I think that is a situation that probably happens where we can become complacent.
Yeah.
And I think because of the way that the Dent Act had worked all these 8 years, that he was kind of complacent about things, that where he was like, not, Blake was telling him, hey, there's things going on underground. And he's like, we really don't need to worry about that stuff, which is, when things are going right, I think that that is a human thing, that we do become complacent,
Yeah. Well.
whereas I think
Yeah.
that's what he was, more complacent.
Well, I think actually it's not necessarily complacent. It was fear, right? Because he's got a family he's got to take care of. And you could see how fearful he was that he wouldn't even come to the door when Gordon was there, right? So I think that's what it is. He was
Right.
really.
Well, I'm going to say then, but before that, before Bane blew up everything,
Yeah.
when they were, he was the Blake was trying to tell him that they needed to check out the underground, and he was like, we don't have to worry about those criminals. They're probably nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. In
I,
that part, he was more complacent.
yeah.
Which, after everything happened, that's when Officer Blake became Detective Blake.
Yeah.
You
Sure.
which I thought again was interesting.
Yeah.
We also got some kind of interesting appearances. Jamie from Blue Bloods, your mom's one of your mom's favorite shows,
Oh, okay.
played a rookie police officer
Oh,
who
okay.
actually shoots at Batman, not knowing, and the old guy is like, "Kid, you're shooting at the wrong guy."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, if it's a young person, and if he got the force, if he's been on the force for less than 8 years, then he's been a police officer for the full time when Batman was not around. So,
Right, had no idea who he was. So the
right.
way they played all that was just like
Yeah.
it. I thought the movie was done 90% great.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was taken out of it a few times, but I did like the entwining of the different stories.
Yeah. Agreed.
And Selena Kyle, the relationship with her and Bruce
Yeah.
was done real well, because that is an ongoing thing, of course.
Right.
Even Batman and Catwoman,
Yeah.
which we did get a little of that towards the end of the movie.
That's right.
We also had Fox
Mhm.
there, who was basically, which I don't know, but that part of the story where he kept everything under lock and key, he was taking all of their different military inventions and different things, and he was putting them in one area.
Yeah.
And then we find out later, as Bane and Batman are fighting, that Bane knows where it's all at, and
Right.
he's going to take it all.
Yep.
So, was that all a manipulation from Bane? This is a story that's been years in the making, I think, as far as the plot for Bane.
Right.
I think he's been a very patient guy. His goal is to finish Ra's al Ghul's destruction of Gotham,
Well,
right?
I think it's more about Miranda slash Talia. It's about her taking revenge on Batman for killing her father, and her kind of taking her rightful place in the League of Shadows and continuing out the mission of Gotham has served its purpose. It needs to be destroyed.
Yes, but until the end there, everybody believes that it's all Bane.
Yeah.
And that to me was the interesting twist.
Yeah.
When we get to the when Tate stabs Batman,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No, I'm the kid that got out of the pit."
Right.
And it was like a what moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
done really well.
Yeah.
And that Bane was her protector in the pit.
That's right.
So I thought that was really good. They really never got explained, though, the mask part of it.
Yeah, it was said because he was so severely injured, the mask actually gives him it lessens the pain that he experiences, the chronic pain that he suffers. Unlike the comic, where the mask, is a way to get the venom in him to make him super strong.
Right, which totally different. But
yeah,
this probably a more believable story, maybe.
Sure.
But even though she didn't want him to die, Batman, he still was going to kill her. Bane was still going to kill Batman.
Agreed. Yeah.
But then we get another character arc with Selena Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody expecting her to leave. She blew the hole.
Yep.
And she was going to just leave then.
Yep.
But did not.
Right.
So we got that. And we also, somewhere in the story, we had this machine that he called the Bat.
Yes.
And we got in the story that the only thing messed up with it, or the thing that didn't work, was the autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Was the story.
Right.
But again, due to the great writing at the end,
Yeah.
you know, everything is unfolded
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the big thing is that the ending I thought was actually really, really done well. And like you said, I think there was some true resolution there. You have basically Batman / Bruce Wayne really ending his career and making sure that things are put in place to kind of carry on his legacy. So first thing is that he donates his home to the orphans, which is something that kind of they used to be involved in, but they couldn't because of financial difficulty. So you have that. You've got the bat signal. He's restored that to Jim Gordon, right? He got a brand new bat signal at the end. You saw him, taking a look at that. He gives instructions to Blake to find the bat cave. And then at the very, very end, we get this callback to this, fantasy that Alfred
has, yes.
Yeah. And, he kind of just looks across at a restaurant and he sees him, and so I think that was like the perfect way to end the movie.
Right, with Selena Kyle, he was there with Selena.
Right. And I think it was also the perfect way to end, both Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan's run with the Batman series. I mean, it was really a good ending. I mean, sure,
Yes.
it kind of opened up, possibility of exploring, what did, the new Robin, what is he going to do or whatever. But
that's what I would have loved, to either have a Robin or a Nightwing movie.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that would be, and that's still something that I think that they should maybe try to address.
Well, I don't think they'll be able to in the DCEU because they've killed off Robin off screen for us. So, at least, well, they said they killed off Robin, but they didn't say which Robin because there's been like 6 of them, right?
There's been quite a few different Robins. There's a Red Hood. There's Damian, his son.
Yeah.
There's also
Tim Drake, right?
Yes, and
there's a girl Robin, I think, right?
Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
Was the original, who became Nightwing.
Right.
Which I think when DC had that series on their channel, Teen Titans.
Yeah.
I think they attempted to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a good series, but only 2 seasons. So
right.
I was wondering about that. Well, we also got closure knowing that Bruce was still alive because we got Fox
right
having his techs try to figure out how come the self-destruct or the autopilot didn't work.
Right.
Yet it did work.
Right. It did. So
they were like, oh yeah, this thing was patched 6 months ago or whatever,
Right.
And so then we got, okay, we have the possibility for Bruce to be alive.
Right.
Now, so all in all, like I say, 90% thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
So anything else that you want to go over?
Nope. I've said everything I wanted to say.
Oh, good. Well, I'm going to say the same. Me too.
Cool.
Other than giving it a rating. And since I went first last time, I'm going to make you go first this time.
Okay. Well, you mentioned you like 90% of the film, so I don't know if that means you're going to give it a 9, but for me, it's probably an 8.5. I'm going to give it that. Still a very good film. Story very good. Like we've said, some of the things. So I would say the takeaways is some of the performances were a little bit less than stellar. So particularly Anne Hathaway as Selena Kyle, just okay. No Michelle Pfeiffer, in my book. So 8.5 for me.
Yes, I'd have to agree with that portrayal. That and Sean Connery as Bane was definitely, well, it was good, but like you said, didn't need to have that accent. Definitely. I think he would have been more ominous.
Yeah.
Although in some of the animated stuff, he has a Spanish accent.
Yeah, which makes sense because his original origin story was he was raised in Cuba. So
Yes, originally. So, yes. So I'm going to say that. But 8.5 is a good rating. I am going 9, like you thought,
okay.
um, because for the most part, I enjoyed it. It's a story that it's one of the DC movies that you could actually watch more than once
Agreed. Yeah.
and enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, it's like if I were to turn on the television and it was on a TV with commercials,
Yeah.
I would just throw the DVD in and watch it,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so that I can watch it without commercials. But
Sure.
because you can imagine with commercials, it'd probably be a 3.5 hour movie or 4 hour
Yeah,
movie. So,
definitely. Definitely.
okay. So
All right.
that was good. I thought, like I said, there was closure there, which I totally liked about it. It did make me want to have a Robin movie or Nightwing at the end there. I totally thought that would have been acceptable if they wanted to go that route. But I think by this time Nolan was done with it.
Yeah.
You know,
And I
so
would rather him be done with it than make a lackluster fourth film.
I would agree with that. But again, if it's another story, it's not a Batman story.
Yeah.
That would, but I guess anybody else could do that.
Yeah.
So it just makes me bode the new Batman. How is that going to be? I wonder. Well, we'll find out.
Time will tell.
Yes, time will tell. Okay, if you're done, I'm done.
All right.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for an episode of Pop's Collection. We will see you next week with something special. We don't know exactly yet, but stay tuned for that. And thank you. Goodbye and God bless.
Goodbye. God bless, and tell your friends.